All right. Dominique, if you're ready, I think we'll go ahead and get started.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah. Before we begin, if anyone has a question, please feel free to submit it in the chat. When we're done discussing, we'll address as many questions at the end of the presentation as possible. All right. So thank you to everyone joining us. My name is Tessa Shevlin. I am the Business Development Manager for Dunlap Bennett Ludwig. DBL is a veteran-owned law firm that boasts over 80 attorneys who are licensed to practice in over 40 states and abroad. I'm here today with DBL Trust and Estate Partner Dominique Braggs, and we are going to discuss her estate planning emergency checklist. Dominique, before we dive into that, do you want to share a little bit about your background?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for setting up this program and for inviting me along. My name's Dominique Braggs. I am a native of this area. I grew up in this area before attending the United States Military Academy. I spent 5 years as an Army officer, an Army finance officer, prior to attending law school. And the reason that I got into estate planning, some of the first things that I did when I had my license was actually preparing wills for, we called it Wills for Heroes. So our firefighters, our law enforcement, our military personnel, we would prepare the wills for them or their other estate documents. And I got really interested in it, and here I am.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Dominique. So let's go ahead and jump into it. What are the 3 documents often overlooked by clients when they start thinking about their estate plan?
Okay, I like to call these the living documents because they are only effective while you're living, and while you're living, you definitely need them. So it's a financial power of attorney and a medical power of attorney, and then also a living will. And you sometimes see the living will combined with the medical power of attorney, and you might hear the term advanced medical directive, but they can be 3 separate documents. And it's very important. Again, these are the documents that are effective and in control while you are living.
Wonderful. So we've touched on the documents that someone might have overlooked. What are the 2 documents that come to mind normally when people reach out to you for estate planning needs?
The 2 documents are definitely a will or a revocable trust. And so, and you'll notice that I mentioned a living will previously. That is a medical type document. And so there's some confusion sometimes with clients. They've heard the term living will, they think that it's a will, they're not really sure. And then they also ask the question, do I need a will? Do I need a trust? Do I need both? Are they interchangeable? Yeah.
So let's imagine that someone didn't have those documents in place. What are some of the issues that might occur?
Well, if you don't have the documents in place, and again, this is estate planning, and so it's all about planning. There are still processes that if you don't have the documents in place, then the courts become involved. So if you are injured or incapacitated in some sort of way, and you can't make decisions for yourself, or you can't communicate those decisions, if you don't have these documents in place, if you don't have your power of attorney documents, then your family has to petition to the court to have someone appointed who can make decisions.
What are some scenarios, Dominique, that might complicate the way that somebody would plan for this? For example, if an individual has a blended family, or perhaps they have a child who has special needs, what's some advice that you would give to somebody in those situations?
That's a great question. And we definitely are seeing more and more families that are coming in. And when we say blended family, we mean that think of the Brady Bunch. Maybe I'm aging myself with that one, but you could have the parents, the children, maybe the parents have divorced and remarried someone else who already had children. Then they had more children in their current marriage, and so it's just a blending of parents, children, step parents, stepchildren. And you're right, things become um, a little bit more complicated when it's not your basic parents and children. And this is what happens if I pass away without a will. Well, the laws of intestacy say that everything would go to my surviving spouse. And if I don't have a surviving spouse, then to my children. When you have a blended family, perhaps if a portion of your estate would go to your surviving spouse, while the other portion would go to your children. And the idea behind that is that while a parent might take care of their biological children, perhaps a step parent wouldn't. And that's not to say that, that there's any problem with step parents, but it's just a matter of they might take care of their biological children before they take care of their stepchildren. The same thing with special needs. If you have a child that is going to need care for the rest of their life, and you want to make sure that they're still able to qualify for state and federal benefits, you definitely want to have a plan in place, so that a lot of times parents are the ones taking care of their children with special needs, and then the parents pass away when they're in their 70s and 80s. Their children are maybe in their 40s, 50s, 60s. And unless there's a plan in place, then suddenly this child that you've been taking care of their entire life is on their own. And there's no one there to pick up that slack unless they have siblings. And then you want to, question whether or not you want to involve their siblings in that it's a huge responsibility without having a plan in place. You don't want to just assume that their siblings are going to take care of them. I mean, in most cases they will. They'll step forward and do that, but you want to make it as easy as possible for everyone.
Thank you so much, Dominique. And just to expand on that a little bit further, what are some things that an individual could do to prepare for if they were incapacitated in regards to their children?
Okay. As I said, those 3 documents that we discussed at the beginning of our discussion, those living documents, a financial power of attorney, a medical directive, and a living will, those are the documents that will communicate your wishes, what you want to have happen, who you would like to take care of your finances in case something happens to you, who you would like to make medical decisions for you, what sort of medical decisions you would like to have made and have your input in there. Would you like to be placed on a ventilator or not? Do you want them to take extraordinary measures to save your life or not? And when we're talking about children, especially if you have children who are under the age of 18, you also want to make sure if you're not able to take care of them, do you have a guardian that you've nominated who's able to take care of your children? We have a lot of single parents out here now, and if you are hospitalized and you can't communicate, are your children on their own, or are you just assuming that one of your family members will step forward and take care of them?
So obtaining the documents we've discussed, that's really the first step. What are some other questions people should be asking themselves?
Um, I would say that they really need to ask the question, and again, I know that people are a little bit squeamish about doing an estate plan because I don't know, there's the thought that, well, if I do the plan, then I'm just tempting fate and something's going to happen to me right away. And I always say it's better to have a plan in place and hopefully not need it than to need it and not have it. So some of the other things that you want to ask, it's great if you have a plan in place. Does your family know where to find your documents? Have you I don't know, cleaned up your home at some point and tidied everything and put things away, and no one knows where you've actually put your documents? So it's important that you communicate with whoever it is that you've nominated to be your agent. Let them know, this is what I have. I do actually have a will. I do actually have these power of attorney documents. This is where they're located. This is where, you can find them. Who can, I guess that's the main thing, making sure that you communicate to whoever it is that you've trusted to be your agent. Communicate to them that this is what I would like to have happen, and this is where you can find this information in case I'm not here or I'm not able to tell you exactly where everything is.
And where would you recommend, Dominique, that people store these documents? I know that you and I have talked about this before, and you
Yes.
have many interesting stories surrounding this. So I would love for you to share that information with everyone as
Yes,
well.
I am so glad that you asked this question. I always advise my clients to get a fireproof and waterproof safe. They have the small ones that you can get at local retailers, but put your important documents in there. Again, tell your family and trusted advisors where to find it, but put your documents in a fireproof, waterproof safe. Things happen, fires happen, floods happen, so you want to protect those documents. I do have some clients who, and again, I don't want to show my age, but when you talk about safe deposit boxes, people say, well, I have a safe deposit box. Isn't that a good thing? And for those in the audience who don't know what that is, at a bank or financial institution, there was actually a physical location where you could store your valuables and important papers. And whenever you needed to use those items, you would go to the bank. You had a key, someone else, the bank manager had a key. You would open up the boxes and take what you needed. If you have a safe deposit box and you put your important documents in there now, that's fine, as long as yours is not the only name on the box, as long as you are not the only owner. We want to make sure that someone else has access to that box in case you're not available. And if that doesn't happen, if you're the only person that has access to that box, we actually have to go to court to get a special order so that we can open the box and get to those documents. And this is the other thing. People would put their documents in the safe deposit box. No one would realize it was there, so you might not actually find their will until 6 months after they've passed away. Well, you've already done, you've already buried them. Maybe you've already opened probate. You've already started gathering assets. It's just something to keep in mind, but definitely circling back to what we were saying earlier, fireproof, waterproof boxes, they're small enough. You can keep your important documents in there, and I highly recommend it.
Wonderful. So, as parents, I'm sure many people watching are parents. If you're leaving your child with a babysitter, often you'll leave a list instructing them where to find important information or documents. I know you've suggested doing something similar as part of your estate plan. What's some information that you would recommend leaving on this type of list?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. And I love the analogy that you made as far as leaving a list for the babysitter. Well, in this manner, you also want to perhaps leave a list to say, yes, I have a will. Maybe I have a trust. This is my attorney. This is, the law office that I've used. This is the name of my financial advisor. This is the name of my CPA. If you have any questions about it. A lot of times we have clients that come in and they say, we're not really sure where they might have had accounts or where they had insurance policies. So I would also advise, if there are certain areas where you bank, leave a list of those banks. You don't have to leave the account numbers. You can just say, I have accounts at 3 different banks. So if something happens to me, make sure that you check here. Same thing with insurance policies, retirement benefits, and you can leave the names of those policy managers and account managers just so that your loved ones have a roadmap that they can look to in case you're not there to say, this is what's going on. Also, a huge thing, and I'm dealing with this with a few of my clients, and so I really want to stress it. We started including information about digital assets within our estate plans. So, if everyone has a Facebook account, that's great. What happens if something happens to you? Who has access to that account? Who can go in and either modify it or close it? So if you also want to include a list of passwords and various things like your email accounts, again, you don't have to put a lot of information on there. I understand privacy concerns, but at least some indication of, where to look for your assets, who to contact if your family has questions about anything going forward.
Thanks so much, Dominique. And this is more of a general question, but for individuals who are trying to decide who they would like to select as their estate planning attorney, what advice would you give to them for what qualities they want to look for or what type of estate planning attorney they'll want to work with?
I would say the most important quality is that you are comfortable with the person that is designing your estate plan. Um, this is a person that, designing your plan, hopefully that's not the only time that they ever speak to you. Hopefully you develop a relationship with them because, we also say we put a plan in place. It's not static. You're able to change it. And every 3 to 5 years, we recommend having a review of your plan and coming back in and talking about it. There might have been changes in the law, there might have been changes in your family. And so we put these documents in place, but they're not set in stone. We can make changes, make amendments, make adjustments. So the most important thing is finding someone that you can work with and that you're comfortable with. And I say this because even though I believe that we have the finest attorneys here at Dunlap Bennett and Ludwig, we are not the only attorneys, and I recognize that there are many fantastic attorneys in the area. So the main thing is making sure that you're comfortable with that person. You also want to know that they understand changes in the law, that they understand the documents that you need. Something that a lot of advisors might not have said anything about a few years ago, and we didn't realize until parents started asking this question. If you have a college age son or daughter and they go off to school, you're thinking, I'm paying the tuition bills or they're still on my health insurance plan. So if anything happens to them, I'm going to find out. The hospital will call me, the doctors will contact me. And what we were finding was that, first of all, that's not the case because when the children are 18, they are adults. Um, they need their own healthcare power of attorney. They need to be able to make those decisions because they are adults. And the fact is, if they don't have this document or you're not listed on the document, the hospital is not going to contact you. They're not going to be authorized to speak to you. So, um, you want to work with a team that realizes that and knows that this is a document that maybe you need to consider and that, you want to make sure is part of your plan.
Wonderful. So I think the main thing that I've taken away from everything that we've discussed, that an individual's level of preparedness is entirely up to them, to take time to consider whether you fulfill the legal aspects of your emergency preparedness plan, not just the documents. And I wanted to touch base too, you talked about this a little bit, but why would you recommend DBL, Dominique?
Well, again, as I said, I believe that here at DBL, we have some of the finest attorneys in the area, and it's it's really a pleasure working with everyone here. And we enjoy our jobs. We enjoy coming in to work, and so I hope that our clients can also feel that same level of comfort and enjoyment. And again, I understand estate planning is not always the happiest um, type of uh, task that someone takes on, but um, I always feel that it is much better to have a plan in place, and then it gives you peace of mind. You have that peace of mind of knowing that if the worst happens and you're not able to take care of your family, that you've done everything in your power to make sure that they're going to be okay, to make sure that this is one less thing that they have to worry about.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Dominique, for taking the time to share all that information with us. I would love to open up to questions if there's anybody that's joined us that has a question they'd like to ask Dominique.